Hello, my name is Leah Lamb, and I am going to be speaking with you a little bit about the School for Sacred Storytelling and this kind of wild journey that we are getting ready to go on. I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing here, what is sacred storytelling, and what does it mean to join a community of sacred storytellers, and what can you expect to experience? What can you expect to change and transform? What kind of stories will you tell? We'll be talking about all of that. I'm going to go over the whole program with you, and at the end, I'm going to tell a story. So let us begin. I like to begin just by taking a few moments to consider our relationship with language, and that, as we know, all the ancients believed that the world was sung, spoken, and chanted into existence. I always like to pause in that moment because it tells us the keys to how to be human and humans' unique role on this planet, that here we are speaking reality into existence. It's not like New Age, it's actually like really old age, ancient understanding of the power of our language. Abracadabra, I speak what I create. So let us talk about the School for Sacred Storytelling and what gathers us in. And what really inspired me as a creator of this program is really looking at how do we show up for these times? How do we bring our best selves? How do we bring the best parts of humanity to a time that is truly challenging humanity's place on this planet and the role that we play? And so what greater moment to come in close and really examine through these ancient practices of story, of ritual, of ceremony, of relationship to land and relationship to other. These are all key components of the School for Sacred Storytelling. Okay, so I am going to walk you through this 19-month program, and I'm going to explain to you how there's two different kinds of tracks that together create the entire program. So on one side of our reality is we have these sanctuary modules. These are 6-week personal discovery classes. And what these are is they're designed to go through the different chakras of your body. So they're designed to get in and understand how is the energy flowing through your story, through the story of your life, and where is that energy getting stuck? Where are your stories stuck on repeat? Where are they blocked? Where are the stories that are ripe and ready for the picking and are like begging to be shared? So we go through these different ways. And so, for example, we'll start with Sanctuary. Sanctuary is a class, it's a 6-week class. There's nothing like it. It is designed to support you to explore your creator matrix. This is like your personal operating system for how you are a conscious creator. We'll discover your creator avatar, and we'll get to understanding what makes you tick. And what we really do in this class is we clean house. We make sense of where is the mental clutter in your psychic space. Where is the physical clutter, the matter that's taking up space in your creation space, not making room for you to create? And what about your body? This is your vehicle. This is your vehicle for actually carrying the stories and for receiving the story. So this is really about cleaning out all the clutter so that we can really work on these basic foundational skills, which is how do you come into a sense of deep listening, of trusting your intuition, of developing that relationship with the muse, with the creative life force. And we're going to learn some of the basic foundational building block skills that will really support you through the rest of this entire journey. What I'm going to tell you now is that if you're watching this video, you missed the very first class. Sanctuary is almost done as I record this, but that's okay, because lucky for you, we're going to do a 6-day intensive in January. So it's a great way to launch a year with this 6-week creative intensive, and it's what we did in 6 weeks we'll be doing in this 6-day time. And I think that's going to be actually a very, very kind of amazing way to start your year, where you really get to literally clear the palette and figure out who you are, what you came to do, what are you in service to, and what's in the way of you expressing your creative life force and fully coming into thriving. Okay, so after Sanctuary, you go into Mythos. And Mythos is this 4-week class that is all about story skills classes. So remember how I told you we had 2 different components to the program? One was that 6-week personal development part where you get to go through the different chakras and see what's there. After that, we have these 4-week storytelling skills classes. And these are where you learn 6 different specific kinds of stories to tell. And you get to tell all the different kinds of stories of your personal life through these different techniques and modalities. Okay? And so one of the things that I love about this whole program is that it's not just me sharing my particular modality of how to work with story as a tool for healing, both for the individual and for the collective, but we also bring in, I think we're bringing in over 30 guest teachers over the next 19 months. There is such a wide variety of diverse perspectives, diverse cultures, diverse voices, something that was very, very important to us as we created this program. And one of the things that I love is that you're going to get to have all the edges of your comfort zones kind of pushed on and bumped up against, but you're going to be in this safe place of sanctuary, this place where it's safe to be brave, it's safe to explore, and it's safe to use this creative life force to move through that which you're coming into relationship with. Someone just said something to me, and it brought so much joy in the weirdest way. They were like, well, your classes are always a little bit challenging, but I have so much fun in them, and that's just it. It's like the place where we get to grow. So the Mythos class, which I just started telling you about, is that 4-week creative intensive class. And that's where you get to come and tell the origin story of your soul. Not just like, what is your life story as a human, but the actual mythic, symbolic, the piece of the metaphors that are running through your life. You get to tell the biggest story, the most creative story, and we'll be working out our mythic imagination in this part of the course. Then we're going to go to Eros. And Eros is the 2nd chakra. We're working with that great relationship between sexual energy and creative energy. And they're both in that 2nd chakra. And so you'll get to understand and explore where are the different stories that are living in your life, in your soul, in your body, that are wanting to be expressed. And then we'll come out and we'll tell them. So it's going to go back and forth, and you can see this document, and you can see how we go through each different part of the body, and we come out with a story to tell. And the thing that I want to tell you about is that there are 5 different unique components to this program that I want you to know. One is, as I mentioned, our guest teachers, just an extraordinary amount of variety. So you might realize, hey, you know what? I don't want to take the classes. I actually just want to study with these guest teachers. Strange to imagine, but it's possible. And it's one of the great parts of this program where our alumni do get to come back and be part and continue to be part of this community of sacred storytellers. You might also be looking at this program and say, oh gosh, 19 months, that's a bit much. For those of you, some of you are saying, yes, I am so ready to be held on a committed path that will lead me on a journey where I will be in a state of having extremely different ways of telling and expressing my stories on the other side. This is how we step onto that path of mastery and commitment. And so some of you are saying, yeah, I'm in for the long ride, and you get the certificate of completion at the end. And you also have an opportunity to come back as a facilitator in the school afterwards. And some of you might be saying, oh, I just want to take a taste. I want to try that Mythos class or the wisdom stories class where I get to, look at an old situation in my life that was really had a lot of suffering and pain and meld it and alchemize it and transform it into a beautiful giveaway. So there's all different kinds of ways that you can play with us. The other things that I want to tell you about is that we work with small groups in our classes. So I always think of it like sewing, and when we're in class, we're going to start to poke holes, and we're going to, create these little new ways of seeing the world, seeing your story, expressing your story. We're going to look at the places, we're going to shed light in maybe some of the darkest corners. We're going to have fun playing with it. We're going to find all the things in the way of your creative expression. And then we're going to find a way to be joyful in playing with that and alchemizing it and getting around it. And then I say that working with your community, working with your small groups where you meet outside of class, that's sort of where you sew. And you're sewing it all together because you get to work with this group of people who witness your change, who witness you go deep into your own process and experience as you get to anchor in everything that we're exploring together. Some people love the opportunity to work with small groups outside of class, and some people don't. And the great thing is, this is a pick your own adventure. This is an opportunity that's been available to you, but you don't have to do it. The other thing that is available to you is private coaching. So some of you are saying, oh, I really want to, I'm really serious about developing my storytelling skills. And every course we have, we end on our final day with what I call like a mini storytelling festival. And there's singing, and there's some play, and there's a lot of stories. And if you really want to get additional coaching, that's available to you. The other thing that I love about this particular program is that it's designed to do live. In this time of, wow, Zoom's a lot, but like here we get to have a lot of live interaction. You're in breakout groups a lot. You're working with groups of 2. You're getting to actually share. You're getting to create. You're getting to be witnessed, and you're getting to really learn and develop and hone your own skills to support others and their greatness as they're supporting you and your greatness. Which brings me to the last piece that I really want to tell you about, which is our community. And the community of people that are gathering around this are I find them to be some of the most delightful people. And one of the things I think we have in common is this desire to meet the times that we're living in. This desire to find our voice in these times, and this desire to work with story, this beautiful, beautiful, ancient technology that in its inherent design brings people together and connects us. What is it to bring this more and more and more alive in our times in a conscious way where we are aware of the power of our word and our influence on others. So that community is something that makes, it's like the piece that isn't in the marketing copy, but it is a really beautiful part of our experience of coming together to do this work. We also have a place that we meet as a private community on Mighty Networks. Some of you might be familiar with that platform. And what I would say about that is that for those of you who are taking courses, you can go in there and you'll have a very private space. But then there's a more public space for all of our communities where our alumni hang out, or just people of our sacred storytelling community hang out. And in the paid membership, which you get for free as part of your course tuition, is you get a weekly writing group. You also get a monthly book reading club, and then you also get open hours with me. So I do open office hours for the community twice a month. Anyone can show up, and as a collective, we get to bounce around and work with whatever is in our collective that week. So I think I should tell you a story. And the way that I start telling stories, and I tell stories like this. I like to begin with a simple prayer. And that is, may all the words that need to be heard be spoken, and may all the words that need to be spoken be heard. And this story comes straight out of an exercise that you and I might do together. And in this particular moment, I was dealing a lot with fear. And I became very aware that if I continued to speak about my fear, that it would just bring more and more and more of it into the room with the people who I loved. And lucky for me, I was with someone who was quite creative. And he was listening to my fear. And I said, can we just play a moment? If you do this much, you gotta take your own medicine, right? And so I said, well, can we play with this for a moment? And he said, sure. And I was like, can we do a spontaneous storytelling? And he said, sure. And so this is what happened. Once upon a time, there was this beautiful village. And this village had tables all through town covered in food, grapes and apples and delicious, well harvested and considerably harvested meats. It had always plenty of clean water to drink. There were people dancing in the streets and making love under the apple trees, and there was just a lot of happiness. There was so much happiness here that it was actually called the Village of Joy. And one of the things that was very distinct about this place is that in their gardens, they were particularly known for the extraordinarily bright, beautiful, and joyful sunflowers that grew there. And as would any village, there was a brother and a sister. And they lived in this very modest hut that gave them exactly what they needed to rest and restore and eat well and be with their family. And in the kitchen, just kind of barely underneath the table, there was this word that was scratched out into the wood. And the children grew up seeing that word scratched out into the wood, and they didn't quite know what it was there for. I mean, it was a word that was very familiar. It reminded them of dinner, and it made them kind of smile, and their parents told them that their great-great-great-great-grandmother had etched it into the floor so that if ever there was a moment when all seemed lost and no hope was left, they could speak that word into presence and they would be protected. I mean, the kids looked at that word and they thought that was a very, very strange choice for such a big kind of task. But what the heck? They grew up with it. It was like their friend, it was just the word on the floor. Anyway, time goes by. Everything's so joyful and peaceful. And kids, it's like they want to know what else is out there in the world. And so they start to notice that late at night, when they're looking out their windows, over the top of the hill, there's a little bit of light that's coming from the other side of the ridge, and it's not from the moon, it's from something else. And they go to their auntie and they say, Auntie, what's on the other side of the village? Oh, no, she said. There's no going to the other side of the village. Why not? She wouldn't tell them. She wouldn't give them anything. Nothing. Well, so of course they got crazy curious. So they went over to their uncle and they said, Uncle, Auntie told us to ask you. These kids were clever. Auntie told us to ask you what was on the other side of the ridge. And Uncle, who was quite fascinated himself, said, well, I see a long time ago, there was something that flew over. It had no name and no face, all black and kind of strange, but it dropped these things into our village. It landed like poop on the ground, and it smelled like, I won't even bother saying out loud. Anyway, we went over to it, and some, looked at it and kept walking. Some looked at it, and it was as if they started to get hypnotized by that which was there. And they, even though it smelled gross and looked gross and handled rather disgusting, they would pick it up, and then they began to feel that way too, kind of gross and disgusting, a little bit left and discarded. And the more that they carried it, they started to kind of spread it on other people and other beings, and it began to kind of spread like a weird little virus through our beautiful home. And we thought there was no place for this, so we asked those people to put it down. They wouldn't. It was stuck on them. And it became this situation. We had a council late into the night because it was taking over more and more of our good village of people. And finally, we made a decision, a choice, and no one knows if it was right and no one knows if it was wrong, but we banished those people. We banished them, and we sent them in a long line over that ridge. to live on the other side with what was left of them and what they had handled, picked up, not known how to drop off. We haven't seen them since. Well, those little kids were super curious about who these ancestors of theirs were. So one night they snuck out and they climbed over the ridge and they looked down, and sure enough, there was this whole other village of people right on the other side of this mountain. And they started to walk down. And as the sun began to rise, they began to see how this village worked. And it was very, very different. There were no tables of food. Nobody was dancing. Nobody was laughing. Nobody was smiling. And actually, everyone was sort of crouched down, just kind of looking down. There was no looking up. And they started to notice that maybe this wasn't a place that they wanted to visit after all. By then it was too late. For what was growing in their gardens was nothing like the gorgeous sunflowers of their time. What was growing was this muck, this gooky stuff, and it was sliming its way up the mountains. It was so gross. And before the children knew what had happened, it had surrounded them. And as this muck began to surround them, they began to feel heavy in their bones. And they began to feel the tears roll over their cheeks. And they began to fall over themselves. And they could feel that their life itself was somehow slipping and sliding outside of themselves. And it was in that moment when the little girl remembered of what her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother had done by carving that word into the very floor of their kitchen that she might call upon in a moment of despair. And she realized this was the despair that she was prepared to meet with that word. And so in that moment, she grabbed her brother's hand and she looked at him in complete open-eyed desperation and she said, "Chicken!" And he laughed. He started laughing. Chicken! And as he laughed, she laughed. When she laughed, he laughed. Before they knew it, they were rolling in laughter. And with every kind of bit of honey-filled, belly-filled laughter that came out of them, a sunflower popped out of the ground and grew around them like beautiful stars from the sky right there in front of them, protecting them in all the ways. And as those sunflowers grew around them, and as their laughter turned from tears of shame and fear to tears of joy, they were able to go and face the city of fear. For that, they now realized, was what it was known for. And so they chopped down their sunflowers one by one and placed them in their arms as they walked down the mountain. And there they met these people who were in one breath strangers, and in another breath their ancestors. And they looked them in the eye. They had to crouch down to catch their eye, which was only looking at the ground. And they offered them these sunflowers. And they told them, there is always a way home. Ayo, 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 ayo. And so here we have it, a little description of the School for Sacred Storytelling and a little example of how we can work with story as a tool to transform and alchemize and make sense and bring meaning to the things that are so hard to meet in these moments. And so if you are working with fear, for example, you might want to see what would be the opposing energy. What is the invitation for something else? And how can you find a way to bring that and speak into the space so that you can speak not just the voice of fear, but to the voice of fear? Making fear a character in your own story rather than the main celebrity or star. So that's more than a mouthful for you guys. I hope that you are wonderful and well and enjoy your journey through storytelling. And if you know that this is your place, welcome, welcome, welcome. I can't wait to hear your stories. And if you have any questions, you know how to find us, but I'll just tell you right here, you can always email us at info@leahlam.com and someone will be there to meet and greet your questions. All right, talk to you soon. And I hope to hear your stories even sooner. Bye-bye.